like we have live streaming.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, you want to call the meeting to order?
Yeah, let's start this morning's meeting. Bob, we have some house cleaning to do. You have a motion you want to bring forward?
I do, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to the committee that we appoint Marilyn Mills to be the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment and Diana Saunderson to be the acting Secretary Treasurer. I think those are the correct terms. So there's my motion.
Okay, second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carrie, thanks. Okay, start this morning's meeting. Tina, I'll pass it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning. Our first application on the agenda is a minor variance for 67 Eaton Drive. This is a minor variance for reduction in rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6.9 meters to facilitate the construction of the rear covered deck in the rear yard. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the Fort Tesla Planning Act, finds that it meets all four and is recommending approval.
Great, thank you very much, Tina. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Is the applicant online? I don't see them.
Apologies, we're bringing them in right now.
Okay, thanks. Jennifer? There's the applicant. Okay,
I have no issues with this, and I know it's a one-story house itself, but I'm wondering if, to be consistent, we should clarify that the variance applies to a single-story addition only.
okay. Staff have a problem or any comments in that regard, Tina?
Yeah, if the variance would apply to the rear covered deck, so it's not going to be more than 2 stories.
Okay, so then that's, you're suggesting then if there's no other questions or comments, then you're suggesting an amendment, Jennifer, that would that be a condition, I guess?
Or to permit a single-story covered rear deck.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else? We'll take that as a motion. Bob?
Okay, this is fairly straightforward. It's a very minor variance just to accommodate the overhang. I think Jennifer's amendment is appropriate and she has made a motion, so I will second the motion.
All right, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 359 Guelph Street. This is a minor variance to facilitate the conversion of the single detached dwelling into a duplex. So there are variances to both zoning bylaws to recognize the parking configuration in the existing driveway. Staff have reviewed the variance application and finds that it meets all 4 tests in the Planning Act and are recommending approval.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Just before we move forward, I just want to make a comment myself. I just found this a little bit hard or difficult to fully understand or to fully know that what we're approving here, because we don't have a proper plan that was submitted with the application. If you look at their plan of survey, so-called plan of survey that they had submitted, the back of the lot's 9.1 meters, but the front seems to be, it's tapered. So like, is this approval even proper in accordance with the plan is my question or comment. And that all being said, I'll just pass it over my colleagues at this point. Scott.
Yeah, I just had another question, Mr. Chairman, on I know that the parking area exists, but based on my site inspection, the porch projects into what would be a DVT issue. I just want to know from staff whether there's not a need for another variance as well.
For you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding is that the site only requires 2 parking spaces and they're providing a 3rd. So I would suggest that the 2 required parking spaces be the ones that farthest away from the porch, and the one closest to the porch can just be a surplus parking space. And we understand that the porch is existing and that it is within the DVT, but I think if we put the proposed parking space the surplus space towards the porch, I think that can alleviate that issue.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Maybe I'll chime in here, Mr. Chair. Just a quick
Sure.
question. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your concern as to what you brought up at the beginning?
Well, when I look at this plan that they submitted, the lot line's tapered, but they show 9.1 meters at the rear and not the front. So what's the actual distance at the front?
Good question.
That's what we're really looking at here, is it not? So, yeah, Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, what I'm hearing from staff, because this is only a duplex being requested, there's only 2 legal parking spaces required, and there's certainly more than enough room for that, even if it was only 8 meters wide. So I have no issue with this.
Okay. So I just wanted to throw it out there.
Yep.
Anyone else or a motion? Scott?
Yeah, I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation. I think this is what's a good intensification project and adding to our units in the city. So
Second? Bob, all in favor? Carried, thanks.
Our next minor variance is for a property at 11 Oneida Place. This is a variance to zoning bylaw 85-1 to permit a rear covered deck, a rear deck to have a rear yard setback of 7 meters instead of the required 7.5 meters. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 Tesla Planning Act and finds that it meets all 4 and is recommending approval.
Great, thanks, Tina. Anyone have any questions, comments? Scott?
I just had a question for the applicant and also just a note for staff. It would be really nice if there were plans submitted again with this application. Is the gazebo just one of those prefab ones, or is it going to be kind of a unique constructed gazebo? Is it 1 story high?
It's 1 story high and custom built, attached to the house.
Okay. Would you have any issue if we moved your application to permit a 1 story covered rear deck?
No, because essentially it is a 1 story covered patio, actually.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. Anyone else? If not, Scott, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think this is fairly straightforward. It's an existing covered deck. It's a minor variance 7 versus 7.5. They have the building permit. There's no agencies involved or concerned. So I move that this be approved as per the city staff report.
All right, second. That was, hold it.
Clarification?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to,
Oh,
there was an issue for 1 story, Bob. That was clarification, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so that will then be amended. Jennifer?
Second that.
Second, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay.
Okay, our next application is an application for minor variance for 16 Upper Canada Drive. This is a variance to recognize the parking 2.7 meters from the lot line instead of 6 meters back from the front property line. The applicant would like to convert the attached garage into living space for use of the property as a duplex. Staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 Tesla Planning Act and is recommending approval.
Okay, good. We have 2 people registered in opposition, and I'm assuming, let me see, because this came in late this morning, that they are the same people that sent us some correspondence, I believe. So we'll hear from the people in opposition first. I just want to remind the people in opposition that as a committee, we're here to evaluate the application and the merits of the application, what they're applying for only, and not things like garbage and debris on site and things of that nature. There's another venue, property standards that you would have to seek some assistance from in that regard. So that being said, is Chris online?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there you are, Chris. Great, thanks. You have the floor.
Thank you all. I'm a next door resident there.
Okay,
And as per the document, which I understood you received, I've summarized my survey, Google Maps survey there, which basically disagrees that the proposed modifications are in keeping with the massing design and physical character of the neighborhood. I surveyed the 38 most relevant properties nearby on the street, found that they are all single-family homes. So it's not a concern of visual appeal there. This is particular with respect to the driveway. 87% of the homes do have a garage, and the only ones that don't feature side parking. So there are no homes such as what is proposed that use the vast majority of the building's frontage for parking area. And I've therefore stated it's unique in the neighborhood, the proposal. Furthermore, there's a tree to the western edge, which will be quite close, and similarly a lamp post to the eastern edge, which would be very close to the new driveway. And objection number 5, I basically thought, if this is converted to a duplex, I'm actually quite in support of densification as a person. However, the parking still, I think, practically limits the occupancy of the building. And if you increase the parking above existing, you would have to put cars in a 2x2 rank, and it would contradict the notion of streetscape dominance, which the staff report states is to be avoided. So we're not realistically increasing the parking without compromising that. And that's my statement. Thank you.
okay, thanks, Chris. Does anyone have any questions for Chris? Scott? You're on mute, Scott.
Don't know how that happened, Mr. Chairman. I don't have one for the resident, but I do have questions for staff and for the applicant.
Okay, well, we'll just hold them till we hear from the next person in opposition, and then we can do that. Okay, so if Chris is done, thanks, Chris. The next person then is Fred. Is Fred online? Yeah, I see him there.
Hello.
There you go, Fred. We hear you. Okay.
All right. My wife and I have lived at 28 Upper Canada Drive since 1978. We are the original owners of the house. We are the only family that continues to reside in these 7 homes. The homes were built in the mid-70s. They were model homes built by Vintage Housing. As a result, they had larger lots. They had better construction, deeper lots, and they were meant to be a better presentation for purposes of selling homes over on Vintage Crescent across on the other side of Dune Village Road. So there's a walkway adjacent to number 34 Upper Canada Drive, and it creates a very small neighborhood of 14 homes going from the walkway over to Dune Village Road, both facing Upper Canada and facing Ferrier Drive. Over the decades that we've been there, we have had the privilege of having many neighbors coming in, and we've enjoyed the feeling of these 14 homes and the single-family dwellings that they are. It's, I guess, when we became aware that the home was being purchased by someone from outside of the region, and that it was their plan to fix it up and then to resell it, we were fine with that. We thought, okay, I'm going to fix it up, and you know, we'll anticipate a new family moving in. It is my understanding that the purchaser of the property, once they got into renovating, didn't realize the extent that it was required. They did stop throughout the process and left the building, sit as is for a period of time. And I guess they went to plan 2, and that was, well, if we can't renovate and turn the house around and make a profit, then we will apply for a duplex. I understand that in our present zoning, that a duplex is permissible. So I understand that. The concerns that I have is that if the house is designated as a residence in the top floor and a residence in the bottom floor, does the city, the committee, have any stipulations in terms of the number of people that can reside in the building? Must they be related? Can this owner turn it into a college residence for students? The other issue that I have, and this is from Stats Canada, presently in 2019, Stats Canada indicates that the number of children per single household is 1.9 children, and the number of vehicles per single family household is 2.3 vehicles. So if there are 2 single families that would be residing in this home, then we would anticipate at least 4 vehicles would need to be parked on the property. What the owner is proposing is to widen the driveway for 2 vehicles. There is no parking on the side of the house on Upper Canada Drive. There is limited parking on the other side of the street, where there is a condo facility, and all of those parking spots tend to be taken up by the owners of the condos during the summer. And to be honest, I have no idea where they park during the winter, because it's illegal to park in there. So those are my concerns, and that is absentee landlord, number of people that would be residing, and number of vehicles that would be permitted on the property. All of those will detract and take away from the long-standing neighborhood of single-family homes and the presentation of the vintage model homes, and all of the previous owners have honestly taken great care of their yards and their property and maintaining it. And so those are my concerns.
Okay, good. Thanks, Fred. Does anyone have any questions for Fred? No? Okay. Then what I'll do is I'll hand.
Oops, looks like we lost our chairman. There he is.
Sorry, it's not, I mean, I'm the applicant for 16 Upper Canada. Is it okay that I can answer some of the questions for the opponents, if it's possible, or I have to wait for my turn?
Well, I'll jump.
There we go, sorry.
There we go. Okay, Denny's
I
back.
have no idea what's going on. I'm not even touching anything.
You need your video,
Yeah.
Denny.
Huh?
You need your video.
There we go. Like I said, I don't know what's going on. I didn't touch a thing. But anyways, yes, no, for sure. You can speak and then my colleagues can ask any questions that they may have. So go
Okay,
ahead.
so, I mean, just to answer a few questions from Chris that the survey of the duplex, I think it is my understanding that this property 16 Upper Canada has already, this zone is actually, it's already been approved for the duplex. So I'm not sure that if we are doing something which is not been permitted in the zoning bylaw. The other part is actually the widening of the driveway, and I think we already submit the corporate application for the the widening of the driveway. They have some concerns that there was a tree on the left side, which is with the Chris property that was installed earlier this year, and that was a very, very tiny tree. Forestry department, the city of Kitchener, proposed that if we can pay $600 for the tree replacement, and still we have enough setbacks just to go with the widening of the driveway. So without going to any neighbor's property both ways, I think we were meeting the setbacks which was required by the city easily, and the tree which was installed to the left of the property where I think the 10th Upper Canada Drive is, that has been also been taken care by the forestry department. They were in line with our recommendations. Toward the right side of the property, where I think the Fred lives, I think the 20 Upper Canada, that post is quite far away, actually, the street post. We were supposed to have a 1 meter setback from the center, which we are having it. So I'm not sure that actually how the widening of the driveway gonna affect that the neighbors actually. The other part for the intensification, I think this is under normal. That that area is growing, and I don't know that why. For the second question for the Fred, that how we can control and how many people are gonna live. We are just proposing two units. So obviously, two different families, or maybe one family relative to each other may live there. We are proposing just two parkings. And city has the bylaws. If someone park 3 parking there or someone park on the roads, they can come and ticket it. So I'm not sure that, how it's gonna impact our neighbors there. So I'm just trying to find that, is it like a debris out there that causing a problem, or is there something else which I'm trying to understand actually, and not how we not complying with the city's bylaws. So as for the debris and some take care of the lawn and the lawn mowing is concerned, yes, there were some issues. I understand that, but that has been taken care of. Obviously that was an eye opener, but that was been taken care of. So I'm not sure that actually how we are not being aligned with the city's bylaws, and we're not trying to align with the neighbors' expectations. So those are my few answers. So if they have some questions to ask me, I'm authorized. I'm an engineer on this project, so they can ask me, and I can try my best to answer those.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Do you have any questions, comments? Scott?
I have a couple questions for the applicant. You've answered the one. You are intending to have a curb cut here. That's correct?
Yes.
And what is your timing on the installation of the widened driveway in the fact that we're now heading into the winter months?
At this point, this application, actual building permit application was submitted on August 15th, but and then we came up with there's an issue here. Then we just go get the paperwork done and everything on top of my head, that we just get the full proper approval from committee so we can actually proceed. As right after we have the permission, if we have it, we can move forward and get the curb cut done.
I'm more interested in the widening of the driveway because once you get into November, asphalting sometimes is a little questionable.
I understand that, but I think you only need 7 degrees to put an asphalt there, as per my experience with an asphalt. So one good day for asphalt gonna work for us. At
Okay, the
least
reason
we'll
I'm
still in this
asking
weather.
questions, just so the applicant understands, is that I would like to impose a condition that the driveway be widened by a certain date. I was thinking actually next spring. But anyway, I have a question for staff. The widened driveway is not requiring a variance in terms of width, and any other driveway in this neighborhood could be widened to 50%, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. When the time comes, Mr. Chairman, I really have no objection to this application. I've looked at the plans. This is consistent with many applications we've approved across the city. I do intend to request the committee consider 2 conditions. One, that a curb cut be attained, and 2, that the driveway be installed as per the plans by May 1st next year.
All right. Is anyone else? Jennifer?
So does it mean that we have, I mean, this has to be done by next spring, or that can be done by then, on my first or after? So I'm not getting.
He's proposing that you would have the driveway
Okay.
done by
Okay.
that date.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jennifer?
Just to support Mr. Hannah's comments and note that there's no physical changes being proposed here. The massing's no different than what's there today. And my review of the neighborhood suggests that this double wide driveways are very common. And there's lots of parking in the front yard in this area. So I think it's appropriate, and I'm prepared to move that the application be approved, subject to the 2 conditions proposed by Mr. Hannah.
All right, second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of order, I'd really appreciate if staff were allowed to introduce the application, especially the next one, because it's got a long history. So I know that Tina is just chomping at the bit to do that.
No, that's what we have been doing, I thought. Anyways,
I don't think we got them for the last one. So anyway.
Okay, yep, I'm here. I too was having technical difficulties and got booted out, Denny.
something,
so,
yeah, something happened, yeah.
Yeah, so that's likely what happened. So the next application we have is for 77 Lancaster Street West. I will give a brief outline. So this property received site plan approval for a 6-unit multiple dwelling in 1999. The property changed hands this summer. The new owner discovered an additional dwelling unit, or 7 units in the building. So they would like to legalize that 7th unit. It does require variances to the parking to recognize existing parking configuration for the site. So staff are recommending, have reviewed the variances for parking in light of the 4 Tests of Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4, and is recommending approval, subject to the site plan being updated with the correct number of dwelling units and visitor parking space location.
Okay, good, thank you. The just before I hand it over, just a quick question is you touched on it, Tina. There should probably be a condition to indicate the visitor parking spot on the site plan. It's not really, it's mentioned in the report, but not as a condition. And the other thing is, I just want to inquire in regards to this the cause or condition from CN. I've got 2 inquiries. Number 1 is, when we see anything like this from Bell, we ignore it. Why are we taking the different approach with CN? And number 2 is, I'm not comfortable giving CN any discretion over our approvals for removals of condition. That I think needs to stay under the roof of the city of Kitchener. And it would be more appropriate that it would be just at the discretion of probably maybe the director of planning. And then the director of planning can satisfy themselves whether, everything is in order or not. But especially in light of the fact that you haven't even been able to get CN to respond back to this. And what happens if you're trying to clear a condition within a certain time period and you can't get a response? So that's the two comments, or the one's a question, one's a comment. Is there an answer or response to the question there, Tina?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure.
So to answer the question about the site plan, so in terms of the recommendation, staff have said that the site plan will be updated to show the correct number of dwelling units and the visitor parking space location. So the implementation of that will occur through the site plan approval process and building permit once they get their site plan approval. With respect to the CN condition, staff noted that this was an unusual ask. Typically, it's noise warning clauses that we're seeing from CN. And in this case, it was a environmental easement. So staff did seek legal advice with our staff here at City. We're recommended to include it as a condition subject to at the sole discretion and satisfaction of CN, so that they would have the ability to waive that condition. It is unusual from a planning point of view, a staff point of view. I too am having difficulty with this condition, considering residential uses are already currently permitted. Typically, we see this type of condition when there's a change of use, and this is not the case. So staff appreciates the committee's concerns with this condition. I too had the same, and that is why I did seek out legal advice in terms of including it as a condition of the variances.
Right. Okay. Questions, comments, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've raised the same concern I had. I personally cannot support the CN condition. First of all, again, it's normally applied to what I would consider to be new development, and this is not that case. And it's really something that if the applicant needs to fulfill this condition, it could go on for months. And I'm not going to put the applicant through that, especially given the distance to the rail line. And it's all about just avoiding future people complaining about noise, which bothers me in the first place. And I think I appreciate staff's comment about the fact that this will be a site plan application and we'll deal with the visitor parking through that. So,
yeah.
But I will fully support this application, but not subject to the CN condition.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with both your concern. I was going to bring that up. I echo Mr. Hanna's concerns. I think it's a good application, but I think we're opening a door to all kinds of external agencies wanting to come in and tie up the process potentially for months, if not years. So I'm in support of the application, but not the condition for the CN rail.
Okay, motion. Bob?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I will move that condition number 1, the application environmental easement in favor of CN be removed. And if that's removed, then I move that this be approved as per the staff report.
All right, second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, our next application is for a property at 24 Chestnut Street. This is an application for reduction for the interior side yard setback from 1.2 meters to 0.7 meters to facilitate the construction of an addition at the side and rear of the dwelling and to maintain the existing side yard of the existing single detached dwelling. Staff have reviewed the application, finds that it meets the 4 tests in the Planning Act and are recommending approval. And as you will note, CN did require and request the same condition for the environmental easement. Staff have the same comments as with the last application. We have difficulty with the condition, considering it's an existing use. No additional dwelling units are being added. However, as with the last application, we did seek legal advice and were advised to include it. But again, it's up to your discretion.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Questions? Comment? Scott?
Just had a question for the applicant, and again, I I think I like this application, but unfortunately, we didn't have any plans attached to our staff report. I understand the proposed addition is going to be 2 stories high. Do you have plans for windows facing, I believe it's 28, which is the next door neighbor?
28, yeah. No, we submitted plans with our application to Eric back when we did them. There's no windows. Our drawing person, draftsman, I guess, Craig Freedy advises that we wouldn't be allowed to have windows on that side.
That's terrific. So I was just worried about overlook, and I thought the
Yeah.
building code wouldn't allow you
Yeah.
to do
Yeah,
that.
he
Well,
mentioned that. So there's no windows on that side, but we did include all of our drawings, front, back, side, everything with our application.
Okay,
okay,
good.
thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, I think this is great. And when the time comes, I'm happy to move it without the CN condition.
Yeah. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Otherwise, Scott?
Yes, this looks like a wonderful addition to a lovely house, and I'm happy about the privacy issue that I originally had. So I will move the staff recommendation without the CN condition.
Okay, second, Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for our property at 3 Evanstone Avenue. The applicant would like to construct an addition, which includes a garage. And this is for an additional dwelling unit attached, or an ADU, or in the 85-1 bylaw, a duplex. There are a number of variances required to facilitate the addition. Staff have reviewed the application in light of the 4 Tesla Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4, and is recommending approval.
Good, thank you. No one is registered in opposition. Does anyone have any questions, comments, Bob?
I think the applicant or the agent is online.
Yes,
This is a little bit of a complicated application, but generally, I don't have any, it's an addition to facilitate conversion to a duplex and some minor variances. And I agree. They got one condition, preservation enhancement plan. I think that's a good idea. So I'm in support of this.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I just comment on that condition. And I know we've done this in the past. To me, it appears that the addition will only apply to about a quarter of the property. And it appears to be a heavily treed property. And my thought is that it might be overly onerous to force the applicant to inventory trees that aren't in any way affected by the addition. So in the past, I think we've proposed scoped tree preservation studies, so to the vicinity of the addition, and that would be my recommendation or my suggestion in this case.
Yes, it would be the vicinity of the addition, and then to take into consideration of the canopy as it relates to the root system, correct?
That's right, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Otherwise, is there a motion, Jennifer?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I move that the application be approved, subject to the condition that a tree preservation enhancement plan be undertaken in the vicinity of the addition, the construction zone.
Okay. Second. Bob? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 109 Park Street. This is a minor variance to permit a lot width of 12.1 meters rather than the minimum required 15 meters. And this is to permit the use of the existing building for 3 dwelling units. Staff have reviewed the application in light of the 4 Tesla Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4, and is recommending approval.
Okay, good. Thanks, Tina. And once again, we have this CN, they were really aggressive this last cycle. I've never seen these before in 22 years. So anyways, anyone have any questions or comments for the applicant, Scott?
I'm fully supportive of this application, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted confirmation from staff that this will be subject to site plan approval and you'll deal with any permitting necessary for the third unit at that time.
Yes, a multiple dwelling having 3 dwelling units is subject to site plan approval, and it will require a building permit. They can't obtain the building permit until they get site plan approval. So the two will work hand in hand, but there will be the necessary permits and approvals in place to legalize the third unit.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay, good. Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, as you had mentioned, we have the condition from CN. I would suggest that this be amended to remove that. This is just legalizing an existing unit. It will have to go through site plan because it is a triplex. So other than that, I have no concerns and I move that this be approved as amended.
Great, thanks. Second, Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 34 Dooley Drive. This is another parking variance to recognize the parking 1 meter from the street line, or the required parking space 1 meter from the street line rather than the minimum required 6 meters. Again, to facilitate the conversion of the single detached dwelling into a duplex. This morning, we were notified of a neighbor who has notified us that the hedge that transportation planning identified it in the photograph is actually on their property and not the subject property at 34 Dooley Drive. Staff had suggested that the recommendation be subject to the maintenance of the required dark driveway visibility triangles. However, this is not within the applicant's ability to do. So just suggesting that that be stricken from the recommendation, and transportation planning, Dave can answer any questions as it relates to the DVTs, but staff reviewed the variance in light of the 4 Tesla Planning Act and is recommending approval.
Okay, good. And I gather that that's Matthew that brought that to our attention. That's right. He's registered in opposition, which isn't really opposition. It's just to deal with the hedge. Is that correct, Matthew? You're on mute. You're still on mute. There you go.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
I appreciate the time today. And yeah, that was summarized nicely. We take good care of the hedge, and it's significantly higher than that. And I mean, it's not an obstruction and hasn't been an issue thus far. And you know, that is my idea here, to strike that part from the application, please.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have questions or comments? Or a motion? Jennifer?
Sure, I move that the application be approved as amended to strike the requirement for maintenance of the visibility triangles.
All right, second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks.
Our next application before you this morning is a minor variance for 120 Walker Street. So this is a minor variance to permit a rear yard setback of 3 meters rather than the minimum required 7.5 meters to facilitate the construction of a semi-detached dwelling. So the applicant proposes to demolish the existing single detached and build a semi-detached in its place. If there is approval, the committee may see a severance application in the future to create the 2 halves of the semi-detached dwelling unit. But at this time, it's just a minor variance to facilitate its construction. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 Tesla Planning Act, finds that it meets all 4, and is recommending approval.
Okay, good. Scott?
I don't know if the applicant's online, but I just had a question for the applicant, if he or she is available.
Yeah, Chris is there.
Hey, guys.
Very interesting design for this particular intensification project. I just had a question about how you are intending, or will you be intending to provide private outdoor amenity area, especially for the 2 units that are facing Walker Street?
like in light of not having the rear yard for amenity.
Correct.
Yeah, we do have larger side yard setbacks on each side to kind of make up for that loss in the rear yard. So I think we have a setback of 6 meters on both sides.
Do you intend to fence that area though? Because I think you'll be subject to city bylaws that will not allow you to do so because you'll be in the DVT triangle for the property next door.
That's a good point. I think, yeah, that's something we need to consider. I mean, I think we'd be up to fencing that area partially. So that we meet that the DVT, the daylight triangle, or the triangle there.
Yeah, okay. Like I say, very interesting design. I'm just struggling with 4 units rather than simply 2 semi, but I'll let the other committee decide what they want to do.
Anyone else? Jennifer.
I understand Mr. Hannah's concern with the amenity space for a fourplex like this, but I'm not sure that there's any variances associated with that. I'm not sure that we can prevent them from having 4 units on the site. And I, the design I know has the patio doors facing out towards the side lots, side yards, if I'm reading them correctly. I think there's certainly creative ways that you can delineate the amenity areas for the proposed units, and I'm in support of the application.
All right. Bob?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad someone brought up, I think it may have been Mr. Hannah, about, or maybe it was actually staff, Tina brought this up, that there is a proposal or a thought process for a severance down the road. And it looks fairly obvious to me that that's what it was going to be doing. The issue of a fenced in side yard depends on the fence. That's something for the bylaw, not for us, I believe. And there's nobody from the neighborhood who is opposed to this application. So I'm going to go that they deem it to be somewhat compatible. On that note, then I move that this be approved as per the staff report.
Second. Jennifer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks,
guys. Thank you.
Okay, our next minor variance application is for a property at 44 Rushholm Road. This is a minor variance for reduction of the interior side yard in the new zoning bylaw from 3 meters to 1.5 meters. It is to facilitate the construction of a garage addition in the side and an addition out to the rear. Staff note that in zoning bylaw 85-1, the side yard setback is 1.2 meters. Unfortunately, it changed in April, and the applicant has had to apply for the variance to the new zoning bylaw. Staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and are recommending that the variance be approved, subject to a condition of a tree preservation and enhancement plan to the city's satisfaction prior to building permit issuance. Again, staff have reviewed the variance in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and are recommending approval subject to the condition.
Good, thanks, Tina. There's some 2 people registered for opposition, so we'll hear from them first. And we'll start with you, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. I'm Chris Pigeon with GSP Group, and I've been retained by Gary Levine and Debbie Eisenberg, who are also joined here this morning. They're the owners of the property at 36 Rushholm Road, and they live in the single detached dwelling immediately to the east of the applicant's property. I provided a written submission of opposition to the requested minor variance, and I provided Allison Fox with a couple of PDFs this morning that I'd like to refer to. And the reason I did that is that if you got the PDF of the letter, the illustrations, the photos that I provided are difficult to read. So, Mr. Chairman, could you confirm that you've received?
Yes,
those?
we did, Chris. I did
Oh.
anyways. I'm assuming everyone else did. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
very
yeah.
good. Thank you so much. I understand from Gary and Debbie, who've been speaking to their neighbors, that there's been a little bit of confusion about the notice of the minor variance. It was a little bit misleading where it referred to a rear yard addition, but in fact, it's a side yard addition that's triggering the necessity for the minor variance. And there was very little detail that was provided about the addition that relates to the minor variance. There was only a plan view sketch. There was no detail on the width or the height of the garage, whether there is usable space over the garage. There was no roof detail, for example, the pitch or the height of the peak of the roof, and no architectural fenestration, cladding, or window detail on the side yard. Notwithstanding that, it's not imperative that we have that information relative to the minor variance that's before the committee, but it would have been useful, I think, to understand whether it's a 2-car or 3-car garage. In any event, the Levines are opposed to the minor variance application, and my letter to the committee sets out 5 reasons to the opposition. I'm not going to go through all of those reasons. I'd rather like to highlight 3. So the first is that the City of Kitchener recently enacted the new Res 1 zone that applies to these properties, and that zone applies a minimum interior side yard of 3.0 meters. Mr. Saylor has indicated in his staff report that the former zoning bylaw 85-1 required a 1.2 meter setback. Well, clearly to me, city staff felt compelled to apply a greater setback to these lots, and I agree, given the character of the Westmount neighborhood. I noted in my letter that it's been planned by a number of notable professionals, Ryder, Kaufman. In fact, the A.R. Kaufman house is the applicant's home, and then Olmsted, who was a very prominent landscape architect. And I agree with the higher standards that should be upheld. I'd like to focus on 2 physical characteristics of the lot. And the first is the topography. And in my letter to the committee, and this morning, I provided Ms. Fox with a blow-up of an air photo with topographic contours, and I've labeled those contours. And that's those contours come from the Grand River Conservation Authority. The committee can see that these lots fall from a high point at the northwest corner with an elevation of 343 meters above sea level. So from the back left corner of the applicant's property to the front right corner, an elevation of 337.5. So there's 5.5 meters of fall across this lot. And in a general sense, the surface water drains from the applicant's property towards the Levine's front lot line. And I understand from the Levines that the former owner of 44 Rush Home had removed the curb along the edges of the driveway a few years ago, and that resulted in the Levines experiencing a number of floods in their finished basement. And as a result, they constructed a catch basin and a storm sewer at no cost to the neighbor, and they did get permission from the city engineering department to connect that storm sewer in their side yard that extends out to Rush Home Road. And that catch basin is actually illustrated on the applicant's sketch, which appears on page 112. I believe it's 112 of the committee's agenda. So you can see there's a catch basin labeled on the Levine's property. And that catch basin then relays the water out to the street. And the contractor for the Levines did the right thing in terms of tree protection. They did directional drilling under the mature trees to not affect those trees to provide for that stormwater conveyance. So based on my experience, my understanding of the conditions on site, I don't believe it's possible to properly convey the surface drainage from that significant rear lot area in a 1.5 meter side yard. Rather, a 3 meter side yard should be maintained to provide for that proper drainage. The second characteristic that I'd like to highlight for the committee, and I provided some photographs of the mature trees that are located, and they're located on the mutual property line with the applicant, or indeed entirely on the Levine property. And these trees are very mature, healthy, deciduous maples. And they're either, as I said, either split ownership in that the trunk falls on the mutual property line, or they're entirely on the Levine property. And the Levines have indicated to me that they have nurtured all of the trees on their property. They've hired a professional arborist to provide pruning and maintenance of all of the trees, not just these trees on the mutual side lot line, and to feed those trees over the 60 years that they've lived on Rusholme Road. So if you look at the first photograph, I'll just quickly walk the committee through. The first photograph is looking back from Rusholme Road up the side lot line. The applicant's property is on the left and the Levine's property is on the right. And you can see there's a significant maple tree. It's 80 to 100 feet in height. The photograph at the bottom of that page is looking in the reverse direction, so looking south down that mutual property line. And this tree particularly is going to be right adjacent to where the addition is proposed. The other tree is in front of the addition, but this tree is right adjacent to that addition that's proposed. And then the third photograph, just to give you a feel for the size of that tree, it's 60 to 70 feet in height, and you can see that it's in very good condition. So GSP has 5 licensed arborists on staff. I've reviewed these photos with our arborists. They have not been out on site, and it was their opinion that these trees have likely adapted to their environment. That is, that the root zone has probably adapted and extends well under the existing driveways. The driveway is relatively shallow. Those roots would have extended under the driveway to feed the trees and ultimately to provide stability for the tree. However, when the new addition is constructed, the arborists have indicated that about 40 to 50% of that root zone will have to be removed. That will result in, one, instability in the trees, wherein those trees will become potentially a hazard. They'll be subject to wind throw. They could fall on either the Levine property or the applicant's property. Or 2, simply those trees will die as a result of that significant root loss. The staff report recommends that prior to the building permit, that the owner obtain a tree preservation and enhancement plan. And we disagree. Our arborists have indicated that there's probably not a professional arborist in the business who would support a reduction in the side yard from 3 meters to 1.5 meters in this location that would have the effect of losing 40 to 50% of the root zone, with the expectation that these trees will ultimately be lost. Mr. Chairman and committee, this is a very emotional matter for the Levines. Gary's lived on the street with his parents, who lived across the street since the 1950s. Levines they've really been champions, I'll say, of the preservation of the character of the Westmount neighborhood. They've welcomed new and great renovations and rebuilds in the Westmount neighborhood. However, this application for the reduction in side yard from 3 to 1.5 meters is not appropriate. It's not desirable, and it's not minor in nature, given the inability to properly address drainage issues between the two properties and the significant impacts to the mature trees. I note that I believe, and I don't have this confirmed, Mr. Chairman, I think that the city staff report and my comments probably passed each other. I don't think staff had my submission at the time of the writing the report, but I don't know that. Maybe staff can confirm. And then secondly, I can confirm that the applicant caught Debbie Eisenberg, who was leaving her home in the driveway the other day, and provided simply as elevations. So the front elevation and the elevation is labeled left elevation, which I think is the west elevation, but the east elevation that's adjacent to the Levines was not provided. So there's a little bit of information that came across in the last few days, but not a lot of detail. And for these reasons, we're requesting that the committee not support the minor variance application. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. That was well prepared and very enlightening. Does anyone have any questions for Chris? Or we can come back to him if you want. Maybe we'll give the applicant the opportunity to address the concerns and what we've just heard? Crystal?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks very much for having me today. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the history here. So my husband, Curtis Starling, and I to a sale purchase agreement for the property at the beginning of 2021, at which point we had confirmed with the city what the setbacks were that would be allowable to start our architectural drawings. At that point, it was 1.2 meters. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we faced a lot of delays with contractors and drawings and things like that. And unbeknownst to us, the variance had changed back in, I think, March or April with the city. So, you know, from our perspective, unfortunately, we're here asking for a variance, but perhaps wouldn't have to ask for a variance if we hadn't had delays in the process. But here we are. Just to touch on the information, I believe that the Levines are looking for. Yes, so I had spoke with the neighbors on the weekend and provided them with the drawing that our architect had done. And I apologize, I wasn't aware that the depths were, or the heights weren't listed on it, but just for clarification with everybody, we are proposing a 2-car garage. It's 28 feet in length. The height of the garage is 9 feet, 8 inches from the front of the house. And the peak of the 2-story addition is 30 feet, 8 inches. We do have in the plans 1 door, that's Levine's property, and we do have 2 windows that are proposed. But we would be open to eliminating those windows if it was a concern to our neighbor. We've purchased this home because we love the neighborhood, and it is absolutely our intention to keep the stonework and the integrity of the home. You know, everybody on the street has a 2-car garage. It makes sense to have a 2-car garage. In addition to that, what we're proposing is pretty much exactly the same construction and configuration of a garage as everybody has on the street already. Unfortunately, we have just timing that isn't on our side. Our intention is to keep the integrity of the stonework, and in order to get a 2-car garage and not affect the beautiful stonework on the home, we need to encroach on the variance 1.5 meters. So what we're requesting is 1.5 meter setback, sorry. With respect to the trees, it is also our intention to preserve the trees as much as we can. I can tell you that unfortunately with an older home like this, where we've had Castle and Zuka Plumbing Company come in, and Mr. Pigeon, I believe it is, he is correct that the roots are quite deep, and they are actually penetrating the pipe work in the pipe that goes to the city. So we are going to have some interruption with the tree roots because it's affecting and backing up the toilets in the home, and I have to replace that. But we are certainly more than happy to undergo the preservation study for the trees. It's not our intention to remove any trees that we don't have to. It's one of the reasons we bought the property in the first place. It's got a beautiful backyard with lots of trees, and that's one of the reasons we bought the home. Just to touch on the drainage, I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that there is no basement underneath the garage. So the building and the interruption with drainage and comments related to drainage, I have brought my architect Craig Freedy on the call if you wanted to confirm this, but we have ensured with the topographic map that we are not in any way going to jeopardize the Levine's home from a drainage perspective. Then lastly, I just wanted to make a comment with respect to the trees actually being on a shared, that the trees are shared, that Mr. Pigeon noted. As per the legal survey we undertook, those trees do reside on our property. So I just wanted to make a clarification on that point, but Jennifer?
All right.
through you, Mr. Chair, I don't
Yeah.
know if it's appropriate at this point for me to speak. I just wanted to clarify, when you say, through you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Darling, when you say that you've had a survey done of the location of the trees, are you talking about the trunk of the trees being entirely on your property, or the canopy and root system?
Craig, I'm not sure if you would like to answer that question. Oh, I don't know.
He's there.
My understanding.
Looking at the photos, I would assume that it's just the trunk because the canopies are quite large and the
Yeah.
root system will match the canopies, so.
Yeah, I was just gonna make that comment as well. It's my understanding that the trunk resides on our property.
All right, so just to Mr. Pigeon's point,
Mhm.
then, so that would make them boundary trees, Ms. Darling? Under the Forestry Act and the common law, I believe a boundary tree includes, a shared tree includes the root system and the canopy.
Mhm.
So something for you to keep in mind, and we have no jurisdiction over the Forestry Act or boundary trees. That's not for us. But I think it is important, Mr. Chair, to actually understand the impacts that this development will have on the trees before any further decisions are made. I hear the applicant saying there's not going to be any excavation below the garage, which presumably will help, but until we have an expert confirming the impacts on the trees, I think it's appropriate to undertake the study now before a decision is made. My thoughts.
Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a quick clarification to Ms. Meter. Are you suggesting that we defer this?
That would be my recommendation, Mr. McCall.
Okay, then I'm going to jump in because I think it's appropriate at this time. I'm not a professional arborist, but I am a conservator of thousands of trees between here and the cottage. And I'll tell you, if you're going to remove 50% of the ground, the roots under the ground, that tree is not going to make it more than 2-3 years. That's just my opinion. I'm not a certified arborist. It has also been mentioned that this report does not have any elevations showing what is being proposed other than the footprint plan. So I am thinking that this application is a little premature. I'd like some more information before I'm prepared to make a decision. So at that point, I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair, for further discussion.
Okay, Scott?
I'm kind of in the same boat as far as more information, but I just wanted to ask the applicant a quick question, just for clarification. You mentioned the 2-car garage was going to be 28 feet wide?
Yes.
In my books, there's lots of room to shave that down to still get a 2-car garage. I'm just making that comment. With the architect on hand, could he or she comment on how the drainage is going to be handled from back to front? Because I too share the concern, having seen the site, that you're not even going to be able to get a swale through that 1.5 meters. It's going to have to come under the garage, so I'm curious.
Craig?
I'm not sure if his computer is working.
I don't know.
Oh.
There he is.
Oh, he's somehow muted.
I don't know. Craig, did you hear the question? We can't hear you.
Do you want me to call him?
While we're waiting for that, I share.
I think he's on now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think some of the concerns here that have been brought up, we weren't made aware of. I mean, they were only presented by the neighbor when we received the information last Friday that this was a concern. So that's something that wasn't addressed before, but I'm not sure how the decision to be made that the drainage will work at a 3-meter setback. It works for that, but it doesn't work for a 1.5. I mean, that's 6 feet of difference. And I think that's where I'm not sure that really computes that it works the one way and doesn't work the other way. The question was, I mean, we can look at getting some type of drainage plan completed for that property, but that wasn't something involved with the initial variance application, and we simply didn't realize this was something that was of concern.
Okay, well, thanks for that. I just want to conclude my comments by saying I share the comments that have been made by my colleagues on the committee. It would have been much better to have some details to look at as far as the elevations and design of this house so we could assess impacts. But I concur with Jennifer. I would prefer to see those details before we make a decision.
Okay, and just a question for the applicant then. Do you have a problem with the deferral in order to compile this further information? And from what I'm hearing is they'd like to see some elevations, address the concern or the drainage, the arborist report in reference to the trees, and maybe some consideration in shrinking the 28-foot width, because I concur with Scott, 28 feet is very onerous for just a 2-car garage. It's more like a 2.5. So is that a problem or an issue, Crystal?
No, I certainly don't have a problem getting more information. I guess I just want to clarify something, like, are
Yeah.
we looking at the elevation drawings and the detail of the garage for its design, or are we looking at it for its impact related to drainage and to the trees? Like, is this a
It would be
commentary on the building structure here, or is it?
No, it
Like,
would be.
I didn't really understand that was the purpose of the-
Generally, when someone's looking at an encroachment like this, we'll see an elevation that will show window openings and things of that nature. And because we are encroaching it closer to the neighbor's property. So
Okay.
I think that's what Mr. Hanna is really referring to. So you look at that and you look at elevations and then in terms of height and things of that nature. Correct, Scott?
I'm also interested too in the, normally with an application like this, we see a preliminary floor plan, including the garage, so that we can look at widths and things like that, because I can see a win-win here where even potentially there wouldn't even be a need for a variance, or if maybe one that's a little less, and as long as it satisfies drainage.
And is the drainage as a part of the permitting then? The permitting process? Like, if no variance is required?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
no, we certainly don't have a problem doing more work here and also keeping in contact with the neighbors to make sure that everyone's happy. Obviously, we will be living beside each other for many, many years.
Well,
so-
no, yeah, exactly. And you want to make sure it's done and it's done properly. So, I might suggest that, especially because in terms of looking at the trees that you might need maybe into January for deferral.
Mhm.
Usually we put some type of a timeline on it. If you need more time, that's fine. It
Yeah.
can be requested.
I mean, I do want to just highlight, and I think it's prudent for me to let everybody know, especially the neighbors, like, I do have plumbing issues related to these trees, and that is proven by the plumber. So, I just need to make sure, because I obviously can't have a house that the sewage keeps backing up on, and I have to repair the plumbing. And there are tree roots that are penetrating these pipes. So,
That's fine. That can be highlighted in the arborist report. So, lateral drilling for plumbing is a lot different than excavation for footings. Because even if it's slab on grade, you still require footings for garage. So, in the foundation and the exterior walls. So I don't know. I would think maybe the most appropriate would be January to give you the time right now for deferral. I'll let someone else make a motion. The applicant's in agreement with the deferral. So Bob.
Sorry to interject, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Chris Pigeon had his hand raised. Would you be happy for him to speak again?
Yeah, sure, Chris. I'm sorry I didn't see that.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. I took my hand back down. I just will point out to the applicant, I think I heard her say that there's a door proposed on the west elevation or the east elevation of the garage, which implies there's probably a walkway as well. So those details I think are important relative to the trees. My only comment about trees, and I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, routing out some plumbing pipes is different than excavation. I understand there's no basement under the garage, but you have to put footings and foundations underneath the garage. You're excavating 4, 5, 6 feet. So there are impacts to those trees, no question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Bob?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pigeon, for that clarification. I'm going to go back to my original statement that I think that we need more information. This is a little bit premature. So I'm going to move that this be deferred to the January meeting, January 2023.
Scott?
Just a second, sir.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, our final application of the morning is a combined application for minor variance and consent for a property at 192 Woolwich Street. The applicant is requesting consent to create a new lot for a residential dwelling. Variances are required to zoning bylaw 85-1 as it is still zoned agricultural in that zone in zoning bylaw. So when the new bylaw comes into effect, the lots will meet the new Res 2 zone in 2019-051. So staff have reviewed the variances in light of the 4 tests of the Planning Act and find that they meet all 4. And they have reviewed the consent application and find that it meets all the policies and are recommending approval subject to a number of conditions.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just before I turn this over, there's a GRCA fee that should be put in as part of a condition. And specifically, especially in light of what we just heard from Tina, where this would comply once the new bylaw is enacted. I'm curious, I'm asking why has condition 13 arisen from the fire department? To me, it seems extremely onerous. And I didn't really even see mention of it, or unless I missed it in the report anywhere. And that's regarding no, I don't need to say what's regarding it, just the entire clause 13. Did fire department provide comments at anywhere? I didn't see any. Did anyone else see them?
They provided them directly to our staff through the review of the application.
Okay, I didn't see them in the report anywhere. So why are they looking for that? Like I said, I think it's extremely onerous. And personally, I can't support that, but.
They're looking for that condition based on the location of this property from the fire station or where the fire trucks would come from. So this is a standard condition. There are certain areas of the city that are have requirements for direct detect. Oh my goodness, it's mouthful. So just notification that they are a certain distance away from fire services and that this would be a requirement.
Well, would they not share the services with the city of Waterloo?
We do not.
Just given location? Because if not, that seems kind of silly, because in quite honestly, there's a fire station within 2 kilometers of this location. So that's the only reason I asked that question, but I don't know. I've never seen this this clause before. So.
It is a standard subdivision clause that we have in our subdivision agreements where, yeah.
All right. That being said, questions, comments? Bob.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just this is probably the biggest number of pages of any report I've seen in my 16 years. You've been here a little longer, Mr. Chair. Maybe you can update me something that happened decades ago.
No, I'd have to agree with you.
Do we get compensation based on the number of pages? Anyway, that's just me being silly. This is a huge lot. I know it's zoned agriculture, I believe, but I do have one question for staff, and I haven't seen this before. The parkland dedication calculations indicate more than what the city has put in as capped. I haven't seen that before where the parkland dedication has been capped. This is a fairly large 2 lots, millions of dollars involved. And maybe staff can explain to me why parkland dedication has been reduced by about 60%.
We have a new parkland dedication bylaw. So this application was reviewed in light of that new bylaw.
Okay, then.
It was
just
stuck
a-
in over the summer, Bob.
Okay, then as
June to August.
I missed that. It does happen. I'm not as perfect as I like to think I am. So to Tina, can you either send me a link or a copy or something of that new parkland dedication bylaw? Because it really impacts what this committee does. If I'm coming back next January, and I'm not sure what's going to happen there, I would need to be a little more up to speed on this. So other than that, and despite the complications, and Mr. Chair, you made a comment about GRCA fees. I
Yeah.
think there's a couple of GRCA fees here. In the 270 pages I read in this document, there are mentions of fees in different amounts. So can I get some clarification on that as the region's fees? Because I think the applicant would want to know that. And other than that, my parkland dedication request. Other than that, I think this is okay.
Okay, the applicant, you had your hand up, Kristen?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to touch on the direct detect. That was a condition that grabbed my attention as well. We have seen it in other developments. I thought it was quite onerous. However, I did confer with the property owner, and it's my understanding that these houses all within this area already have direct detect. So this is not an onerous requirement for him. It's something that they are currently program that they're currently all enrolled in out in this area of Woolwich.
Okay, good, thank you. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was influenced by the fact that the new zoning bylaw would allow the lot size proposed. So that was one. And obviously, there's been a lot of work gone into the environmental study, the ES, et cetera. But in my reading of the hundreds of pages, I also noted there appears to be the need for a GRCA permit. They are required under condition 13 to approve the updated EIS, but sorry, condition 14. But I was wondering why there's no GRCA permit condition.
Yeah, I think there should be along with the fee, probably, Scott.
Maybe staff can address that.
Are you asking through your chair, GRCA permit for the actual applications or the building permit for the dwelling?
Building permit for the dwelling.
So that would occur through the building permit process.
It will?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not necessary. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Or a motion? Bob?
Well, seeing no one else is going to jump in on this, I think despite your concerns, Mr. Chair, on clause 13, I think staff have addressed that quite clearly. I don't think the direct detect is terribly onerous. I think it's actually a good idea. It can save your building if necessary. So I'm going to move that that this be approved. Oh, there's a noise clause too, isn't there? Yeah. Is that covered in the conditions? Maybe address that to staff, Mr. Chair, that there is a noise clause.
It is, yes.
It's covered in
Condition
there?
8,
I must have
yes.
missed that. Okay.
At the very end, a lot of paperwork, 1819.
Yeah, great, thanks, Tina.
Okay, so I move that this be approved.
Second, Jennifer, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Bob, second, Jennifer, all in favor? Carried, thank you.